Alright, I'm excited to show you how to sew limbs and heads and all that stuff on your little stuffed animals. It looks like a giant mess right now because whenever I finish something, I leave the tail on so that I use this to sew. It just makes it a lot easier, you know, less things to attach. So for this pattern, the head is sewn onto the body, and this is something that a lot of people have trouble with and are afraid to do. But I'll show you some of my best tips, and part of that is my tools. So I like to use just like these regular pins, right? And I pin everything in place, and I also like to use a bent needle. How it has like that little bent tip, it makes it much easier to like go through the material. And I've got mine from Clover. It comes in this little handy container, so you're not losing them all the time. So that's what I'll be using. When I sew my pieces together, I always start with putting the head on the body so that I can align everything up in reference to that. Those are the most important pieces. So my biggest tip, so you don't have the dreaded head wobble, right, is to make sure you stuff the body and the head really well. Okay, so I already stuffed, but you sometimes need to stuff more than you think. Like it looks full, but if there's any give, like too much give, then it'll, because this eventually breaks down a little bit, right? The stuffing inside. So if you stuff it more than you think, it'll eventually like be about the right consistency. So I begin by taking these pins. So for the zebra I'm making here, kind of get the back one on about where I want it. See that? And then go around and go into the head all the way around, just to keep it in place while I sew. And and then I can make adjustments. See, his head's a little crooked. I think this side needs to come over a little bit. Maybe the front. And then when you have it perfect, that's when you start sewing. Okay, so I'm liking that. So I take this string that I left from the body, thread my needle, and I begin sewing. I always leave attached from the back just because. So I'll bring my needle through the head. And take this one out because that's where I want my next stitch to be. I go through the bottom, grab some from the top, pull tight. I sew every stitch, and sometimes I'll go a little farther out so it's not directly above the stitch, right? Like when I go up, I have to move over a little bit, but I always come back to each stitch. So each stitch has been sewed. taking out as I go. It's also helpful, even if you have pins, to double check every once in a while that it's coming on how you want, right? It might move a little bit. He seems okay. Okay, now I'm back to the beginning and I do it again. I always sew around at least twice, sometimes 3 times. Just make sure that that head is really attached. Okay, then once I've gone through there, I take my needle and I go through here and I go like under the part that's attached. And I go through the fabric of the head and come out, right? So I just attach it down like that a couple of times in a couple of different directions. I just feel like it makes it so much more secure. Pull pretty tight. Okay, it's looking pretty good. One other thing that I sometimes like to do with an animal like this that has the narrow nose is I come down here, so I brought it through to the front of his neck, and sometimes I grab and I'll kind of anchor it so that it has a little bit more of a downward, do you know what I mean? It pulls it down. Pull tight. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll bring this to the back and I'll weave in my ends. Just back and forth. It's a little bit harder with the stripes, but just kind of stay where you can. And just weave it back and forth a couple of times. And then grab your scissors. Pull it tight and snip. All right. How's that? Hardly any head wobble, right? It's not as scary as it looks. Okay. Next I'm going to do his ears, because he just is not looking very much like a zebra right now, right? So again, thread the needle on his little ears. I'm going to do like an anchoring stitch to have it keep that shape, right? Just 1 or 2 of those. It also makes it flatter. So when I sew it on, I'll be sewing along this bottom part. Okay. So these little ears will go on this last back stripe right above his eye, sticking up just a little bit. You know how zebra's ears do. Okay. Right there. I'll anchor the front and the back. Sometimes I don't even leave these in for very long when I'm sewing. It just helps so much to get started. Okay, it's got little zebra ears. So take, I shouldn't have unthreaded that. Here we go. So then I do kind of like an anchoring. I want to make sure it stays where I want it to. So here comes this one stitch. And I'll go through the ear. Through the ear. Okay, now I feel like that ear is gonna stay. I'll go ahead and take these out. It's just so much easier to do it that way, even if you don't leave them in for very long, just to get those first, oh dear. That is the danger of having both. See, I got a caught on this one. It's okay. There we go. Okay, it just keeps it stable so you can get those first few stitches and then you can worry about making sure it's really secure, but you know it's in the place you want it to be. Okay. Not bad. Okay, when you feel like your ear is attached enough, the pull test, right? Weave that in, and you'll cut it off. I'll do it through the piece and then get your scissors, pull tight and cut. Okay, so there's one ear. This one got off a little bit, so make sure you adjust as needed. That still looks about right. Okay. Okay, there's the back. Here's the front. Starting to look more like a zebra. Okay, now his legs. I only stuffed the bottom and maybe through here, but this is flat. That just makes it lie better against the body. Let's see. And on this one, it's going on the side just a little bit. You see what I'm saying? So he sits flat. So I'll put it in the right spot. One of the nice things about having like sewing and trying to attach things to crochet, amigurumi stuff, is you have lines and you have squares made by the stitches. So I'm putting it here and it's ending here. So this covers about 3 stripes. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'll pin that. And like I did with the ears, I'm gonna pin them both just to make sure And the first one's easy to sew on. Let's see. So, trying to line it up on the stripes. It's extra easy with the zebra with those stripes, right? But you still have rows that you can count out from the middle. Like usually I would count from the magic circle you began with, right? So those look about right, okay? The hardest part is all these strings, right? Keeping them straight. Okay, and this is my tip with sewing on legs and arms, anything that has like this flat piece. So I pin it first, because like I said, it's always worth it to just take a little extra time. And then I go through on the side, right on the edge, up through the fabric to the other side of the leg. And then come up through this side. Okay, that's like anchored pretty good. I still have to sew it, right? But it holds it. And now I can get rid of these pins. Well, I might leave that one. And then I just go from the back and through. Okay, so just through the fabric of the body. Then I go through, sorry, it's a little bit hard to hold under the camera. And then I go through the fabric of the leg. Fabric of the body, right underneath it, small stitches, try to hit every stitch, and then through the fabric of the leg. And you just repeat that. And I do the same thing as the head. I also go back and forth probably 2-3 times. Okay, and then we have both legs that can sit and go out. And now we do the arms. The arms are almost exactly the same as the legs, right? For this one, it'll be on like a angle instead of straight down, because I like them to come forward a little bit like he's sitting on all fours. So for the zebra, I line it with the top of this last black stripe before you get to the head. Same thing, I like to pin both arms just to try to make sure that they're even and and just where I like them. Same thing, even with the black. So much easier to reposition with pins than sew it on and say, ugh, that is not what I wanted. So that looks about right to me. Same thing. Thread your needle. Start from the side where your yarn is attached to and go to the other side of the arm. And then back up. double check, looks good, and continue sewing on just like you did the legs.